On days of global action, one can feel electricity crackling. On April 15th, 2015, low-wage workers in 200 U.S. cities and 40 countries on 6 continents struck and rallied for a living wage. They marched in New York, Boston, Los Angeles, Chicago, and hundreds of other American locales. They marched in London, Brussels, Paris, Stockholm, Manila, Seoul, Tokyo, Rio, Tegucigalpa, Buenos Aires, Brasilia, Cape Town, Freetown, and Accra. It wasn't only economic gains that moved them. The marchers sought to reoccupy cities where all but the wealthiest have been marginalized by rising costs, to make visible the people on whose labor cities run. While workers are relegated to far-flung fringe neighborhoods or marooned in bleak, poor ethnoburbs, cities that were once economically diverse, home to manufacturing as well as banking and luxury real estate, became sanitized and gentrified amusement parks for the rich. In perhaps the most famous of the world's theme parks for the wealthy, a place called Manhattan, tens of thousands marched that day. They revealed in all its astounding diversity the working class of a truly global city, where nearly 2/3 of children live with a foreign-born parent. Korean, Vietnamese, Cambodian, Afro-Caribbean, Polish and Bulgarian, Russian and Irish, Dominican, Mexican, indigenous Central American immigrants, and their American kids all marched that day. American-born union workers marched too. Puerto Ricans, African Americans, Chinese, Irish, Italian. Among the low-wage workers who came out that day, many were legal residents, but more were undocumented. Hotel workers, home health care providers, restaurant and bakery workers, car service and school bus drivers, crossing guards, airport baggage handlers, like Prince and Canute, car washeros, as they call themselves, fast food servers. They made a conscious choice to come out of the shadows, riding subways and commuter trains from apartments in East New York, Flatlands, Brownsville, and the Bronx, where 2 and 3 generations share lodging. It took a leap of faith for them to come out into the light, says Dominican organizer Virgilio Aran, to lift their heads, to walk freely down the streets of the city center where they work but cannot afford to live. Undocumented workers well understand that employers pay them too little and work them too hard because they are sure that workers without green cards are too frightened to report abuses. Iran has fought for a long time to change that. On April 15, 2015, he walked with his wife and fellow activist Rosana Rodriguez, greeting marchers in emotion-filled Spanish, shaking hands and giving hugs. A few years earlier, the couple had founded the Laundry Worker Center to organize undocumented Spanish-speaking workers across New York. Working with Restaurant Opportunities Center, which is another really great organization for restaurant workers, they sparked a wave of labor uprisings in restaurants, bakeries, warehouses, and laundries across the city and around the region. As this book goes to press, the movement is ongoing. And they organize people who don't work for big corporations like Walmart or H&M. They organize the people who work for small businesses and family-run chains. Often these people are exploited by bosses from their home countries who try to intimidate workers by threatening to harm their family members living abroad. In spite of this, restaurant workers in the Bronx and Queens, warehouse workers in Brooklyn, and retail workers in Manhattan have repeatedly struck since 2012, signed union cards, filed court complaints, and brought cases before the National Labor Relations Board, and they have won. The 2012 campaign led by Mexican immigrant Mahoma Lopez organized the Hot and Crusty Bakeries. In 2016-17, there was a union drive at B&H Photo Warehouse, which resulted in new unions of photo workers, no small feat. But Arana and Rodriguez say the most radical work they do is psychological. To transform scared workers into labor activists, organizers must help them overcome legitimate fears and anxieties. Undocumented workers must transcend lifetimes of being told they're only good for cheap labor. So Laundry Worker Center runs consciousness-raising groups, they run peer education groups, workers teach each other about labor history, racism, and women's oppression. Since so many of the workers are women, everyone must understand the history of sexism, says Aran. And Dominicans teach about white skin privilege in the Dominican Republic and the US. Racism affects workers negatively. We try to help them fight that feeling. And I love this quote, and then I'll because I'm going on a bit, I'll jump toward the end of this. When a worker feels strong enough to step into the light, Aran says, that's an incredible breakthrough. If you're an undocumented immigrant, you get up every single day and you get on the train to go to work. And someone might say, give me your papers, and this is happening now all the time. If you don't have documents, then you're facing deportation. To do that every day takes incredible courage, she says. You've made such hard choices to come to another country, to cross borders, to learn a new language, to adapt and find work, and to face deportation every day.